Okay, shall we start again? Okay, so what comes next? So far we've only generated, so our server now can answer to requests. More specifically, our server can now answer to GET requests, right? And then we can pass in information from the server to the user. But there's no interaction, right? So the user can't really provide information to the server. So it's kind of only one way. We can ask for information, we can get requests, but we can't really make post requests. So we can't send data from the client to the server. And the way we do that is with HTML forms, right? So we need to learn how can we extend our server so that it handles HTML forms with, in this case, post requests. So the first thing that we want to do, or maybe for a blog post, what we would like to do is some kind of sign-in form, right? So where the user types in the username and the password, and then our server handles the signing up part and checks if the username and the password are correct. Okay, how do we do that? The first thing that we need to do is we make a new template, and we call it login.html. We give it we have a title, and in the top part up here, I actually have some error handling in case there's an error variable. I show a red color paragraph with the error message. But the most important part is down here. So this is an HTML form, and it has 3 inputs. One is of type text, a username, and the second input is of type password, an input, and the last input is a submit button. Okay? And up here in the action part, we specify what should happen when the user clicks the submit button. And in our case, we wanted to send a post request to the URL handle login. Right? And so the question is now we need to implement the server endpoint that handles this post request here. So of course I can make a new route called login that renders this template. Right? And if I run the server, I can visit let's visit it /login. And indeed, I see my form. I can type in Simon and my password. Shouldn't type in my actual password. Okay, but then, so here I end up in handle. If you look closely here, it's handle login, and we haven't implemented, right? It's just not found. So we need to now understand how we handle that. And so also what's interesting is you can see down here. So when I opened up the web page /login, you can see that the server received a GET request here. So it's this GET login. But then when I clicked the submit button, the server received a post request on the handle login URL. So this is the one that we want to implement now. Okay, so the way we do that is the 2 new things that we need to learn is we need to make a new route that now handles this handle login. And we additionally specify that this route is specifically a post method, right? So that the server knows that it should answer to post requests. And then in that function definition, we will have a new variable called flask.request, and that will contain all the variables that the user has sent over in that post request. So we can, for example, access the username or the password that the user has sent. So how does this look in practice? So here's my handle login route. It's of type method, as we said. And this is my function definition. Again, here the name really doesn't matter. It just has to be something descriptive so that the code becomes more readable. And in these 2 lines, this is where we extract the information that the user has sent. So I use this request.form, and this is actually a dictionary and with all the form components. So I had one component called username. So if I look up in my form again, right, there was an input with the name username, and there was an input with the name password. And these are the two inputs that I now can access to this request. So the second part here is request.form password. And these are just two strings that I store in Python. And then I can check, then I can make a check. I can see if username equals Simon and password equals safe. Then I want to return you're logged in. And otherwise, I return an error message. I set the error variable to be invalid credentials, and I rendered the login template again. But this time I render it with this error variable so that the error gets rendered. Is that clear? OK, so let's try it. So I executed this code. Our server is running. And I go to /login, right? And then I type in, let's say, again, George. Let's use a user that doesn't exist. And indeed, I get the error message, invalid credentials. And I'm back it renders again the login page, but this time including the error message. But now if I type in Simon and password safe, then it tells me that I'm logged in. And I can actually save this password for future usage. So let's try if this actually works. Log in. Oh, for some reason I have to type in again. OK, anyways. OK. So I think with that, you can really have kind of the core parts. In 1 hour, you kind of learn the core parts on how to develop web applications. OK. Any questions so far? So I thought it would be fun to kind of show you a more concrete example rather than just showing you kind of these abstract examples. Let's try and code something real. Let's code a simple game up, right? And actually, I show you a little bit on the typical problems that one sees, and when it does something like that. And the game is called the Monty Hall game. It's actually a famous game. So if you know it, please don't Google it, because it's kind of fun to do it without knowing what the result is. But it's a fairly simple game. So the game is the following. You have 3 doors, right? So you're in a game show, and you're playing in the game show. You have 3 doors, and you know behind one of the doors there's a car, and behind the other 2 doors there are 2 goats. Right? And obviously you're trying to win the car. And so the way the game works is that you're standing in front of the 3 doors, and you can pick a door. Right? You can say, OK, I want to have this door. But then the leader of this game show, he says, well, before you make your choice, I'm going to open up one of the doors for you. Right? So he goes ahead, he opens one of the doors, and, well, he won't open the door with the car, so he will open a door where there's a goat behind. And then he will ask you, well, do you want to change your mind, or do you stick with your original choice? OK? And then you can decide. And then the door will open, and if there's a car behind, then you get the car, and otherwise you get the goat. So the question now is, statistically, is it better if you stick with the original door that you've picked? Or should you rather change your mind when the game leader asks you, right? OK, but we can try that out. Have you all understood the game, or shall we play one round? You want to play one round? Let's play one round. OK. So I have a door. Who wants to play? So I've written a number down here. This is the winning door, right? So just to. Who wants to play? Come on. Okay, which door do you pick? Number one. Okay. That's a good choice. I'll open up door number 3, and I will tell you there's a code behind. So do you want to change your mind, or you want to stick with number 1?
I want to change.
You want to change your mind? So you pick number 2?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You won. I don't have a car, unfortunately. If I had one, I would give it to you. Okay. Okay, so I think we all understood the game now. So let's see. Let's code this up as a web program, and then maybe we can play it a few rounds and just kind of collect some statistical information on which. So the idea is, right? Okay, we're going to code up this game now, but we're going to remember every single game that was played, and so we collect all the statistical information on how many people have won when they stick to the original door, and how many people have won when they change their minds. And so we can kind of see on which approach is better. Okay, but I mean, before that, that's kind of the final goal. Okay, so how do we do that? The first thing, can you read this okay? Yeah. Okay, so the first thing that we do is we create a new Flask application. So this is fairly straightforward. We create a new app, and we make a standard route with just slash, and I called it the function here root, and I just return the string welcome to the magic door game, and a link to the /select URL to where it just says launch the game. And then down here, I launch the app with a debug equals true just to make things easier. Okay, so this is really easy, right? So if I type in game server, this is our first version, 1, I can open up the URL, and I get welcome to the magic door game, and here's the link, and it will get me to /select, but obviously I haven't implemented /select, so I will just get a not found. Okay, so the next step is to implement the /select route. And the idea of this /select route is that we will be presented by 3 doors, right? So this is where the user makes the choice of the original door that he wants to pick. And the way I've implemented that is I make a new route, and I make the Flask server listen to /select. My function is here just called new. And in this case, I don't really want to, so this is going to be a bit more lengthy HTML code. So I just use the rendering template system of Flask, and I wanted to render the file select2.html. So let's just have a look at this select2.html. Here we go. You can see it's a HTML file with a title, but the most important part is down here. It's a form that has 3 components and 3 inputs here, and the inputs of type radio, and so these are radio buttons, and they take the values 1, 2, and 3. And the name or the content, the text next to the radio button is door 1, door 2, door 3. Okay, so this is hopefully, oh yeah, and then this wasn't completely rendered. And then finally we have a submit button down here, where we can submit which door we want. And also we specify that once we've selected the submit button, we want to make a post request to our server again to the URL reselect. Right? This is going to be the action where the user can change their mind. But yeah, this we haven't implemented. Okay, so this should be our second version of the game. So if we start this, there's really something wrong with the rendering here. Okay, so I start our server again. We started our game. Let's launch a game. And indeed, we now see the rendered page. Right? So we can see the magic door game is started. Choose one of the 3 doors. And now I have these buttons that I can choose from. And say I choose button number 2. I click on submit. And then I get to this reselect URL. Right? So this is now a post request that has been sent to the server. And now we need to understand how we can handle that. So let's implement reselect. That I've done here. Oh dear. Okay. Maybe if my goodness. Let me just restart this. Okay, that's better. Okay, so the reselect implementation is shown up here. So I just added another route called /reselect, and now I added this this argument methods equals post, because when I click on the submit button, right, I make a post request, and so that I need to also listen to the post request on the server side. And so now what I can do is in the function definition here, I can now access the request.form attribute. So remember, this is how I access the variables that the user has sent. And so in particular, in our case, the user has sent the selected door. Right? So I extract request.form, the dictionary, and the door key of that. So this will be the door number. It will be 1, 2, or 3 as a string. And I just convert that into an integer. And I store that into the variable selected. Right? And then I render. So basically, in the next step that I want to do now is I want to ask the player if he wants to change his mind. But for now, I just want to display again the choice that he made, just to see that everything is working. So I render another template, and now into the template system, I also pass the variable selected. So I pass the information about the door that the player has selected. So if I open up this template reselected 1, you can see I already have the title, do you want to change your mind? But for now, I haven't provided any information. I just say, OK, you've selected door, and then here, this is the variable placeholder. So these double curly brackets mean that replace this text with the content of the variable selected. OK. So now, let's start the server. So this was our 3rd version. OK, so this still works. We select the door. Let's select door number 3. And indeed, we get the message. We are now at /reselected, and we get the message, you have selected door number 3. OK, so that's great. So now, OK, now comes the tricky part. So now we would like to give the user the option to change the mind, right? So now they have selected 3. So internally, what we need to do now, we need to say, the game leader now needs to say, OK, you selected door number 3. I opened door number 2 for you. So and there's nothing behind that door. So do you want to change your mind? And so basically, we need to provide a list again with where the user can select either 3 or 1, but not 2. Right? The problem now is that in our reselected, in this function, in this function definition here, we don't know. We haven't decided yet what the winning door actually is, right? So we can't really make a decision on which which door should be opened by the game leader. So what we need to do is, or the way I've handled it is, when we created it, I extended this initial selection method a little bit, and I created a new, basically decided immediately when we start the game, I immediately decided, okay, which door should be the winning one? And I store that into a game state. Right? I'll show you how this works. So I've extended this select method again a little bit. So the select method was the one where the user selects the original door. But when the select method is being called, I also generate a unique game ID. So this ID, so I used a method called here UUID4. It's just a function in Python that creates unique identifiers. And so basically this game ID will be our reference point that contains all the information about that specific game. And we will up here, I created a new variable called game_states, and that will be a map from a game ID to information like the winning door and the selected door by the user and so on. So this will be kind of our game state that will just hold everything that we know about the game that is going on. So okay, when we create a new game here, I generate a game ID, and I draw a winning door. And the way I do that is with a random module. So Python comes with this module called random, and you can use it to generate random integers between a certain range. And so here, obviously I have the doors 1 to 3. So I used random.randint 1, 3, and that will return me a random number between 1 and 3. And then I update my game states dictionary, and I say, okay, my game with an ID, game ID, I attach the winning door here. Right? So here, basically, I remember the door that should be winning for this game. Okay, so so that's great. So now I stored somewhere what the winning door is, but I also need to kind of keep track on the game ID, right? So I need to, from one GET request to the next, we need to keep track of that game ID so that we can always refer back to it. And so we do these when we need to do these in the forms, right? So now I also had to change the select.html that I render. And so in particular, I need to parameterize it with a game ID. And so now if you look into the select.html, remember the original select.html was just the button list of the doors that we have. But I now, and then once we clicked it, we just went to /reselect, and that was it. But now I want to parameterize it. I want to keep track on the game that we're running on. So instead, I now go to /reselect game ID equals, and then the actual game ID that I'm using, right? So here what I'm doing is I attach the game ID as, to our request when we do the reselect request, so that I can extract it again in the reselect endpoint in Python. So okay, so I'll show you how this works. Maybe let's just run this so that you see what's going on. So this is now Python 4.py. So it's still running, right? So now I have the 3 doors, but now if I click on one of the doors, you can see that in the URL up here, I'm now at reselect, but then question mark, and then game ID equals something, right? So there's a long string afterwards. So it's now this information, it's this reference that I kept that allows me to obtain the information again about the game that I'm running. So let's see how this works in the implementation. So I go back to game server number 4. So I have these game states. I update the game states when I start a new server. And so now this is my reselect implementation. And so in the reselect implementation, so the form contains information about the door. So I can just extract it exactly the same way I have. But now I also I use the request.args. And the request.args is all the arguments that have been passed in as part of the URL. And in this particular case, I have the argument game ID that contains the game ID. So I extract that. And then what I do is I ask the game states dictionary about what was the winning door again. Right? And so now at this point, I actually know both this door that has been selected by the user, and I could extract the door that was supposed to be winning. Okay? So in principle, I could have made the game ID part of the form. Right? So that would have been an alternative. I just make maybe a text box that contains the game ID and make it hidden so that the user doesn't see it. So that would have been an alternative. But I just wanted to show you two different ways of passing parameters from one web page to the other. One is through forms, and the other one is through these URL parameters up here. Okay, but so now we have the selected. This is just an integer between 1 and 3. This is the door that has been selected by the user. And we have this winning variable that's again an integer between 1 and 3. That's the door that is supposed to be winning. Right? And so now we need to find out which door the game leader should open. And the way I did that is I created a set, a Python set with the door number 1, 2, 3. Then I remove from that Python set, I remove the winning door because that's definitely not a door that I want to open. And I also don't want to open the door that the user has already selected, right? Because then that'll be boring. Then I would force the player to change his mind. So I don't want to do that. So I basically discard these two doors, and then it might be that I only have one door left, but it might be that actually the winning and the selected door are the same doors, and in this case I have two doors left. So I just make a random choice here. So there's this Python function random.choice that takes a list, and it just takes a random argument, random element from that list. So basically, I just draw a random door and store it in this variable opened. So open now is going to be an integer with a door that I want to open up. Okay, and then I render again a template, which I called reselect. And now I pass into that template, I pass in the variable game ID. For reasons that you will see in a second. And then the selected door and the open door. Okay, let's look at this new reselect implementation. It's shown here. So now what do we want to show? It's actually it's here on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side at the same time. So, and what do we have? The first thing is we show you have selected door and then the door number that we have. In this case, it was 2. And then the game leader opens up a door. So we are writing, I open door number 3 for you in this case. And guess what? Nothing behind it. Okay, so obviously we pick a door where there's no car behind. And now we ask the player if he or she wants to change her mind. And again, now we have an input box, right? We have a radio button input with 3 options. But one of them we want to disable because we want to disable the one that the game leader has already opened. So the way I've done it now in this template system, you can actually have 4 loops. So I just loop over all the doors, and I create an input button. And you can see I have some if statements in here. So basically, if the user has selected the ith door, then I check it immediately, right? So that this is the door that is currently selected by the user. And also, if the door is already opened, then I disable the checkbox. So, and also I attach the word opened up here. So now if I'm here, if I open up the web page, I can click on door 1 and door 2, but I actually can't click on door 3 because it's disabled. Okay? And then I have a submit button. And when I submit, then I go to /final, and then again, I pass in the game ID. Right? So this is going to be my final page, and there I'm going to just show the results. And I tell the user if he is 1 or not. Does that make any sense so far? Yeah? OK, so let's click here. And then obviously, final hasn't been implemented. So we're crashing. But we can already see up here, we again pass the game ID. So that's good. We have the variable that we need to kind of keep track of everything. OK, and that's actually most of it done. So the last part is the final implementation, which I've shown here. Again, that's a route that listens to a post. So again, we had the submit button, right? So we're making a post request. So I also want to listen to this post request here. And so what am I doing? I just want to now decide if the user has 1 or not, right? So again, I extract the selected door from the form. I extract the game ID from the URL parameters that was passed. Then I ask my game state. I extract the game state. I ask the game states dictionary to give me the winning door of this game ID. And then I have this Boolean variable here has 1 that I just say selected equals winning. So basically, the way you should read this is, maybe it's clear if I add brackets here. So if the selected door is equal to the winning door, then has 1 will be true, and otherwise it will be false. OK? And so now I just render a template where I pass in this Boolean variable has 1, and I also pass in the variable winning, because I want to tell the user which door he should have selected to win. So let's open up final.html. So this is, if you look here, so all these HTML files, they're in a subfolder called templates. So this is where you're supposed to put all the templates. OK, so now the way it works is if has 1 is true, then we show congratulations, you have won, and otherwise you show you have lost. The winning door would have been, and then we have this placeholder for the winning door. And then I have just a link to play again. OK, so that's great. So we can try it in a second. So it should actually work. But the interesting part is we want to have some statistics, right? We want to see which strategy is better. So I've implemented a final endpoint called statistics. And this endpoint will now display some statistics about all the games that have been played and how the different strategies performed. And so basically the way this works is that we kept track of all the kept track of all the game states, right? But in the previous implementation, actually the only thing that we stored was the winning door. So in order to make some more statistics, I actually extended this game states a little bit. And if you look closely here, so now for example, in the game states, I also store what was the user's first choice down here. I also store if the user changed his mind or not. This is important. And I stored if the user won or not, right? And so basically, I just store some additional stuff. And then when you open up statistics, I now count how often has the user changed his mind and won, and how often has the user not changed his mind and won. And then on the bottom here, I just display, OK, you changed and won that many times out of that many total games, and you didn't change and won that many times out of that many total games. Right? So this is basically all the statistics that we need to understand which strategy is better. Shall we try it out? Any questions so far? More or less clear? Okay, so what we could try is if I do this. So I trust my implementation that you can't do too nasty stuff with it. But so maybe now, if you go to, oops, what is my URL? Okay. Yeah, so can you read this? So if you have a laptop and you go to 193.157.242.154, shall I read it out again? :5000. I read it out again. So 193.157.242.154:5000. Does it work for anyone? It works for you? Yeah, nice. You will have to be connected to the Udoro network, I think, otherwise it won't work. So then, okay, so maybe if you could just play a few games. Oops. Okay, I'm getting a lot of GET requests here. But maybe if you could just play a few games and we put on the statistics. Statistics. So clearly this isn't designed to scale very well. It already breaks when you have a class. Okay, but so this is interesting. So let's just, maybe you can just play a few games and we can keep track on. So do you think, who thinks it's better to change? Yeah, okay. Now who thinks it's better to not change? 1, 2. Okay, so at the moment it's not clear, right? So at the moment it's changed and 1 is 1 out of 1, and not changed and 1 is also 1 out of 1. Okay. So, yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's entirely clear yet. Oh, here we go. Okay. Maybe some people can try the strategy where you don't change, so that we get a bit more data there. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So let's see. Okay, so maybe that's, do you think that's representative? Maybe not. I'll reload once more. Okay, so this is actually quite good. This is actually really, I think this is quite good already. So look at this. So we have, so the two people so 30 games were games where someone changed his mind. And out of these 29 games, 19 times the person has won, right? So in percentage, that's around 66%, right? And so in 60, if you change your mind, then then you have a 66% chance of winning, in other words. Right? So now if you don't change your mind, right, then out of 36 games, only 12 have won. Or in percentage, if you don't change your mind, then according to these numbers, your chance of winning is 33%. Right? So, and that's actually exactly what that's actually exactly what is the case. So if you change your mind, you will have a 67% chance of winning. If you stick to your original choice, then you have a 33% chance of winning, right? So you can think about why that is. It has been, this is actually, I mean, we know the answer now, but this has been a lot, it's interesting to read the Wikipedia article about this. A lot of PhD students at that time when this quizzle was opened argued for the case that it shouldn't matter if you change or not. And there was huge discussions about it, but we understand it now. Okay, any questions? Yeah. So this should perfectly work on your mobile phone as well, as long as you, I mean, it's just a web page, right? You just open up the... Okay, so it will only work when you connect it on Wi-Fi. Yeah, on your home, then it should work. Okay, it worked for someone else on the... It worked on some. But okay, so this is probably just a technical issue because I'm running it locally, right? But in general, the nice thing about these using kind of web development as a user interface is that you can actually make it available on your local machine, you can make it available on your local network, you can make it available to everyone and to almost all kind of devices, right? But yeah, I mean, I'm running it only on my local machine, so. But in general, I could take this script now and host it somewhere on a web server and make it available to everyone, right? All right? Yeah, okay, then thanks and see you next week.